Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Live in the Studio. Today we are here with TJ. How are you,
Hello,
TJ?
I'm doing well.
Man,
Thank you for having me.
It has been probably like since I've been aware. So actually, I'm not gonna get too far ahead of myself. Will you introduce yourself to us? Tell us what you do.
Hey, I am TJ Graham, and I am currently the worship director at Vizion Church. Yeah.
How long you been there?
Been at Vizion for about 2.5 years, almost 3. Time has been flying quickly.
Yeah. How did you meet them? Like, how did you get connected?
So it's totally a God thing. Randomly, I had received a message on Instagram from Pastor T, and he was like, "Hey, bro, this is gonna sound very weird, but he was like, give me a moment to may I call you? I'd like to speak with you." I was like, okay. So we talked a couple days later, and he said, "It's gonna sound really weird, but I've already prayed about it, and I want you to come be my worship director." And I'm like, "Bro, like, you don't know me, like, that's weird." He's like, "Hey, just hear my heart. Sit down, have lunch with me." So we talked, and we just hit it off, man. We didn't talk anything music related. We just got to know each other, got to know his heart, and it really seemed like a God thing. And so I came and I led worship at the church shortly after that, and we began just the process of transition.
Wow.
Right after that. And it's crazy how it happened. I knew it was the Lord, because when I was at my previous church, I'd actually submitted my letter of resignation. I was getting ready to transition out, and the elders of the church had asked me to kind of stay for a couple more months till they got to a certain place, and I agreed to do it. But I said, hey, I just got to really, feel weird feeling that I feel like the Lord is going to do something in the next few months. And in the next few months, that's when I got that message.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So,
I just told you that story too.
Yeah.
That's actually similar between us. My last position that I was in, this is almost like 6 years ago now. We had been praying about whether or not to stay or go, and Lord like flipped a switch on us, and we were like, all right, we're going. And when literally, like, I went in that Monday, put in a 2 weeks notice, and they were like, what are your plans? We're like, we don't know. And that Friday I get a call, and it was literally like from the church that I grew up in, basically saying, I don't know if you're available, but we need somebody. And it just was one of those things where God's timing, man.
Oh man. God's timing is perfect.
So musically, like, what's your background in music?
So I've been playing key. Well, I started off as a drummer at the age of 4.
Okay.
My mom always has told me that, hey, I've been praying for you, while you were in my womb, and I just feel like the Lord was going to bless you with the gift of music. And I picked up drums at the age of 4, picked up piano shortly after that. My dad is a pastor as well, so I would kind of play under him. And then I studied music education at Winthrop University.
Okay.
In 2011, and started being a choral director. Taught in Winsboro, South Carolina at Fairfield Central High School. Spent 3 years teaching chorus there, then transitioned to Fort Mill at Nation Ford High School. Taught there about 3 years. Decided to start the process of getting a master's at the University of South Carolina in choral conduct. And I always said I wanted to do kind of worship on the side, and then teach like an African American sacred music class on the collegiate level. But as I started the master's degree, I just felt like it wasn't. I realized my love for choral music was not what I thought it was.
Okay.
And I felt that the Lord really wanted me to take this step in doing full-time ministry. So shortly after that, I took the leap, and it was literally the best decision I could have ever made.
Oh, that's awesome. So when it comes to playing keys, like, so you started at like what age? Started
keys, I want to say at about 10 years old.
So you're a killer keys player.
Wow.
Like, you are very good. Man. It's like, even just, I could tell, like, we just heard the recording or whatever when you guys did, because we flipped it around and you guys ended up performing first. But even just hearing the rhythm in what you're playing when I can't hear what the keyboard is, like, you're on, which is really, really cool. I think I've known like 1 or 2 other people maybe that I feel like are like maybe similar, and they've all been session guys. Like, that's it. That's all they do. So it's pretty cool to meet people that are like really gifted in their craft. And you were telling me about Thomas, guitar player on the episode, like coming in and saying, like, he did his audition. You said like normal, right?
He was just coming in. He was very quiet. Would come in and just went to audition as a volunteer, and then got on the team, and later realized that he actually has a degree in classical guitar. He's a super humble individual.
Yeah, he was really good.
Super talented. Yeah,
he was really good. One that comes to going through the bachelor's and the master's in
Yeah.
music, or like part of the master's in music education, like what was some of the like big lessons in that process, and like how's that been applied to like what you're doing like now in worship?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. As I've been studying, you know, it's not, the growth doesn't come from really within the classroom. The classroom gives you the tools to put the work in outside of the classroom, your practice time, your studying independently. That's how you really become a better musician, similar to worship. You know, it's in your personal time of development, your personal relationship with God. It's off the stage where the real work happens, and just on the stage is the outpouring of what you've been doing in your personal time. So it's the same thing. So those are my probably my biggest lessons.
Yeah, I almost went to school for guitar. I auditioned for it and got in and everything, and then kind of like, not in the master's conversation, but like I don't know, it did not sit right with me. So I got halfway into that process and then went, no.
I'm telling you, yeah. When I started the master's degree, I was excited about it. I was like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to expand my broaden my horizons within the choral music field. Started the degree as a summer degree program. Got into my third summer and realized like, something isn't right. I kind of felt depressed. I felt like an outsider in a way. Everybody there was really, really committed and passionate about choral music, and I just felt like there was something else that the Lord wanted me to do. Got 19 credit hours in out of the 32, and getting ready to start another summer, and realized like, I don't think I can do this. But I felt like it was the right thing to do, because I'm like, I'm almost finished. Let me just finish it up. And I called my mentor and told him what was going on. He was like, man, if you feel like the Lord is calling you to do something else, there's no use in you staying doing something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So after I talked with him, I felt the Lord's presence just on that call, and I just sent an email to my professor and was like, hey, I thank you so much for the opportunity, but I think it's time that I kind of transition. My heart is somewhere else. And shortly after became full-time at Vizion, and the Lord has been just breathing on that experience, and I just know I'm exactly where I need to be now.
Yeah. That's a really cool exposition on that process. I think when it comes to like, doing what you're supposed to do, and then when we talk about like from a Christian context, like going after your calling, I think that's something that for me has been kind of revealed more and more over time. And a lot of times it's in the process of doing stuff that I recognize, like right when I'm in the middle of it, like, I need to go there, and through the years, like I started off as I think I already told you this, like I started off young as a worship leader, and got into production literally through like happenstance. Like 19, I started post mixing live services, and I kind of just like, I'll use the phrase "it fell into my lap," but the truth is like God put me there, and I was sitting there doing it 30 plus hours a week and loving every second of it, and it never really dawned on me. Like, because at 19, I wasn't really in that mindset. I just thought it was awesome, and kept trying to get better and better and better and better. I'm like, man, how can I make this like service that we just did sound like as close to a record as possible? And that was like my whole mindset. And they were like, you don't need to do that much. And I was like, no, but it's going to sound better. And just really got very like headfirst into that. And like through the years, like the more I've done production, kind of just, especially leading ministry, right? Like eventually you're not trying to just tell people how to do stuff. You're trying to like disciple at the same time. And you're trying to explain and kind of bring alongside like what are the spiritual motivations for like doing what we do, like what is that why behind why? Because obviously like turning a knob is anybody can do it, but it's sort of the purpose of why we do those things, and
that the purpose part of it is ultimately what fuels the fire for your volunteers to continue want to serve.
Kind of through that process for me, like I kind of recognize it kind of came full circle. So I wonder if this will happen for you with choir stuff eventually too, or choral stuff, is that like I started off doing production. I got so far into it, and it led me right back to songwriting, and right back to worship leading, and right back to like all the stuff that at 17 that I had started with. It all like, man, everything God's done in my life, eventually they all play a role. They converge into this one thing where I'm like, it was all working together the whole time.
I'm telling you,
yeah.
There's an old saying that say, I don't take anything away from my journey. Like everything works together. Seriously.
Have you had something like that maybe you didn't think was going towards it? I mean, it sounds like a lot of the school in general has gone towards what you're doing now.
Yeah,
but
all of the schooling I'm able to apply now. From theoretically teaching numbers, writing chord charts, the vocal technique that I'm teaching with choir and also with the worship team, it's all the same. The technique is all the same. We just use it a little differently.
Yeah.
And I think it can be a tough lesson to learn in life sometimes is when you've, like invested whatever it is, time, money, anything you put into it, and then to feel like it's not right, you know what I mean? It's like, but I've like, well, I should at least finish it, or like I can't quit because, people feel that way with jobs, even relationships and stuff sometimes. And it's like learning to discern and obey, honestly, sometimes.
I had to literally learn to let go of control. I'm so stubborn, and I've tried to just do things on my own strength for so long. And it just got to a point where I hit a wall, and it was like, I need you to follow me.
Yeah, sometimes the choices don't make logical sense. I mean, we went from working like a where I was just doing a lot of mixing to production at a church to writing albums at the church to launching a business to we were going to school in the middle of some of that, all sorts of different stuff, and you feel like you're a little, I mean, I know I always occasionally feel a little spread thin on like, I don't know, I feel like if I could just focus on one thing I'd be more effective. I'm
telling you.
But sometimes that's not what God puts in front of you, and he and so it kind of boils down to like just trusting that and being obedient to where he puts you.
Absolutely.
When it comes to stuff going on at Vizion, like tell us how that's been lately, because I know it seems like it's swelling up. It seems really cool. I know you guys had a worship night recently that Becca, our intern, sang with you at.
Yeah. God has just been so kind. He's breathing on the ministry. It's growing like crazy. I think last year around this time we were seeing maybe about 700 people. Now we're seeing about 1,400 people each week doing 5 services.
Goodness, 5 of them, huh?
5.
What's that like?
Well, we do at 8 o'clock, a 9:30, and 11 to 12:30, and a 6. And we rehearse on Thursdays. Well, actually, now maybe it's good to say 6 services. So we were adding a Vizion Espanol Spanish-speaking service at 3 p.m. So it's been awesome. It's been a marathon, but it's been great. And concerning the worship night, earlier on, we were praying that the Lord will allow us to build a culture of songwriting where we're able to write original music that are basically the prayers and the testimony of the people of the house. Yeah. So as we were praying, God has given us an opportunity to do a songwriting retreat. We did our first songwriting retreat, and at the beginning of January, 8 of us, we just got away in Weaverville, North Carolina, and we just got together, we prayed, we fasted, and we did some devotions, and we just split up in groups, and we just wrote for hours and hours and hours and hours. We came up with about 11 songs at the end of that week. And then the unique part of that experience was we had some people who were super gifted in songwriting. Some have never written a song before, and some were, just kind of on the fence, trying to get a little better with it. And so just seeing the unique gifts come together and the creativity just in one place, it's been amazing. So we would split up different groups and do a song share at the end of each day. And so out of the 11 songs, we felt like 4 of those were really special and wanted to have an opportunity to put those in the house. So that's why we did the worship night. And also with having 5 services, everybody's not able to really worship corporately together. We have Gather Round, which is a young adult worship night every first Friday of the month, but there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for people outside of the young adult community, everybody to come together. And so it was just special that night. And ultimately, with doing 5 services, it's hard to you got to move on. So the night was special because we were able to just soak in his presence and just let the Lord do what he wants to do. And it was a great time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Songwriting wise, like, how heavy of a writer have you been through the years? Like
here and there. I'm honestly still developing myself in songwriting. I have a single out, and I also in my previous church we did a live recording, and I did some writing for that. But even on our team now, we have so many great writers that we're able to share that with and collaborate. Now now that I'm at Vizion, I'm understanding the power in collaborative songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. You get a chemistry, a vibe, if you will. Sorry, I had to use that word.
No, yeah, you're good. Sometimes it fits, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and so the special part of that writing retreat was we were able to split up in different groups of 3, 2, 3, and 4, and see, how are we gelling together. And it was really special. So we found that a group was really strong here. They would stay together and write, and we would just get some great stuff out of it. So
writing for me, especially co-writing, has been a process where it's either like it either clicks like instantly, or it's big struggle for me. We've had like a couple here and there, but ultimately, like,
honestly, you and I struggled for a long time.
Yeah, that's one of those things where in marriage, we've been married this will be 9 years.
Wow.
We met when we were kids. We were like 12 when we met, got married at 18. And the process of learning to like collaborate, even husband and wife, over a decade, like, I think that was something that's really eye-opening to us about collaboration. And like, I think it was like maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we led worship together, and like 3 or 4 people walked up to us at the end talking about how it sounds like we've been singing together for years. And we were like, we have. Like, we absolutely have. And I think when we it's one of those things where I just became really grateful for it, because when we got married, like, that was part of the vision. Like, I was marrying this beautiful girl who is an amazing singer. Yeah, I'm laying it on thick right now. I'm sorry. And
an amazing singer.
Singer. Yeah. And I just was like, already envisioning how we were going to sound and the songs we might write and all that kind of stuff. And then, it took like, honestly, like the first 3 years of it were like, we just did not gel. And that was like a very interesting thing. And it's like, man, but ultimately, like, put in the work over time. And all of a sudden, like, it was like a couple weeks ago, it literally, it felt like home for us to be playing together. And I just had this, it felt like that before then, but it just really hit me in a specific way where, like, there was a lot of weight to it. I'm like, oh, like, today was infinitely more comfortable than anybody else that I would be playing with or singing with. So those collaborations, where it's like, yes, for us it's in a marriage too, but even in a band where you're playing together for years and years. I was a part of a band for like 6 years, and by the end of that process, like, you click so well that there really is something cool about putting that much time in with each other to get like a certain place musically.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so special too with what we have at Vizion. We spend so much time together.
Yeah, I heard about like a 5-hour rehearsal, and I was like, man, that's some friendship right there.
Right before the worship night, we got together at 6 a.m. 7 a.m. and we spent time to about 1 p.m. But on the general Sunday morning, we're like 6:30, and some of us are to like 7 to 8 o'clock at night. And Thursday rehearsals, Monday staff meeting. We spend a lot of time together. And what makes the process so much more enjoyable and rewarding is we genuinely love each other. Everybody's humble. Just going off of the same mission. We're like-minded, and it's just great.
Yeah. So I have some like logistical questions. So like stamina wise, for that long a time, like vocally, how do you guys manage that? Is it just rotating singers, or is it the same singers for all
it's the same singers for the first 4 services, and then we switch for the night service. And what I've tried to do is, the worship set is about 25 minutes long. I try to spread out the leads. So I usually have one person leading a song out of maybe a 4-song set. No more than 2 songs. There have been some Sundays where one person will lead the entire thing. And when you first start, it's a little difficult, but you figure out what works and how to conserve, but still give your all. Trial and error, but it hadn't been as hard as I thought it was, as we all thought it would be.
You're a little afraid of it at first. I would assume, wow, this is gonna be a lot.
Absolutely. And then you learn quickly that, being a vocalist, a singer, it's just, you're an athlete. And so you have to train for that. How are you taking care of yourself leading up to the time when you have to minister? And after a while, it becomes a lifestyle. It has to be a lifestyle, because if not, you won't last. And then sometimes you go back and you listen to the live stream, you're like, I hear that.
Have you seen the Instagram video of like me looking back at the live stream, and it's like all out of key and stuff? I'll show it to you later. It's pretty hilarious. So you were telling me Thomas is like your chief guitar player. What's that like? What's that process? I hadn't heard that before.
We have a process of where, because we run so many services, we have paid musicians, but with volunteers and people who want to come in, there's an audition process. Mm-hmm. And so with every guitar player, Thomas is responsible for discipling our guitar players. If they need help learning parts, spiritually or musically, whatever, he's the go-to for that. And he's the perfect guy. Such a great leader, such humble guy. And it's crazy.
Yeah, he's super humble.
When he came in, there was another guy who was the chief guitar player, and he, being as gifted as Thomas is, he didn't have any problem just falling in and just doing his thing. And when the other guy transitioned, I asked him if he would take over. He was like, yeah. And his whole family is just gifted.
So does he like hand out parts and stuff each week based on the arrangements and stuff?
Well, if there's an arrangement, I'll have him record it and we'll send it out. If there's a chord chart that needs to be written, he'll do it.
Okay.
A lot of times with the way we're going now, everything is pretty much learned by rote. There is a chord chart available, but the nature of the style of music, has like a lot of melodic lines, not a lot of chording going on.
Yeah.
So he handles it all, or sometimes I'll call and I'm like, hey, I have this idea. Let me know what you think, or how does this translate to being a guitar player. And so he's helped me even strengthen my language to be able to communicate like a guitar player
across different instruments. Yeah,
for sure. And so
for
every musician we have that comes in who auditions and wants to be a part of the band, I try to have like a chief musician for
in
every
each
part.
area. Yeah.
And that's
awesome.
been super helpful.
Well, out of curiosity, because I was at Unplugged last Friday or whatever, and I was watching you music direct from the keyboard. Do you guys on a Sunday structurally, do you like leave space for like people going back into bridges and choruses, and you have to direct that, or is it pretty like here's the format we're doing?
Usually, if we do something like that, it's for our 12:30 service or for our 6 p.m. service. It's so unique because we have a lot more time.
Because you're saying because there's a gap at the end of them.
Literally, if we're not out of side note, we're not out of church like at least 20 minutes before the next service. There's like traffic backed up on the highway and everything. So we have to kind of push. But to answer your question, any type of planned spontaneity that's within the worship set we do on Thursday rehearsals. But our worship leaders are so gifted to when they're given an opportunity to flow for our 12:30 or 6 p.m. service. If they're going off the track or something happens with Ableton or the Lord is just moving a different way, I'm just in the mic calling different numbers. And so everybody who joins the team, it's a requirement that, hey, you at least know the number system. Because that's our lifeline in our particular situation. And when we get new people coming in, after a while, they kind of understand the culture. And because we do 4 services, after the second and third, when you do it so much, you just kind of lock in quickly. So
that's cool.
That's awesome. Cool. What's some of the biggest hurdles you guys have had? Like, and this could be just you personally as a worship leader, or it could be within the church too. Whatever it is.
Biggest hurdles personally, I would say it's very important to know who you are, who God has called you to be as a worship leader, and embrace that and be bold in that. And so I'm glad that going back to therapy and life coaching, I'm glad that the Lord had me go through that season before being placed at Vision, because my prayer when I got the Vision was like, hey, Lord, please send us excellent, talented, humble musicians and worship leaders who are super gifted, more gifted than I am in certain areas. And so we can really fulfill what he's called us to do. And he's done that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have gifted worship leaders, gifted musicians, sometimes it's hard not to fall into that area of comparison. But if you know who you are and you know who you are in Christ and you're confident in who he's called you to be, then it's a beautiful thing. And you realize that we're all on the same team. Yeah. And so earlier on, that's a hurdle that I jumped through. That I feel like I have to continue to crucify every day, so it won't come back up. I would say as a team, preaching culture, that, everybody on your team understands the why behind what we do and the importance of that.
Yeah.
Humility, stressing that, but culture is a big thing, setting the foundation early so that everybody understands. Without culture, your ministry is gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
And shout out to a good friend of mine, Juan Molina, who's now the next gen pastor at Vision. He's also our production guy as well, who does lighting and everything. And when he came in, culture, he's anointed to breathe culture within ministry. And so he's actually become a great friend of mine. We've been talking back and forth, but seeing the power of the culture that we've set now and the things that we've laid down is got the fruit. We're seeing the fruit from that. So culture is a big thing. So I would say that will be a hurdle and a thorn if it's not set earlier on.
Yeah. So. One of the things I recognize, and I think it's just because struggling to find it, like especially growing up, like what your calling is, like one of the healthiest things you can do especially if you have like a leadership team, is get your leadership team in the room and have them tell each other what their calling is. Yeah. Because some of them, I even think we did this literally last night with a group of 4 of us, where it was literally just like, okay, what are you called to do? Yeah. And like, you know, I mean, some of them were less prepared. Others were more, I was less prepared and I was the one asking the question. And I was like, oh, I should have thought about this more. My handwriting was real bad, but I was writing down like the things I feel called to do. And you know, like, what was funny is that every person had a different answer.
Absolutely.
And sort of the idea of like, when it comes to, you know, even in, I guess I kind of view that as like a little bit of like a true north, right? Of like, you know, if I know that God's called me to do this and I'm not doing those things, like something's off, right? And not that everybody has to do them all at the same place or the same time or whatever even, but like just to like for yourself to be aware of like, okay, if you know you're called to do something, like make that a priority to be doing those things. That was one for me. And I think hearing each other's too is like a really great way of even, I guess like, what's the right word? Like stewarding, you know, and working with each other, you know, that process of
keeping each other accountable.
Yeah, that too. Yep. I think like, as far as like hurdles of a worship leader, I think for a long time, I tried to get away from feeling like I was supposed to, like that's something I was called to. I got so far into the production world, and I told you it came back around for me eventually, but I didn't really like, I was a little reluctant of that, because when I felt like the Lord was calling me into like what I do with production now, I really loved the fact that it was it was really back behind everything, and I didn't have to deal with like opinion of how I was doing. Like, I was a part of like
more of a hidden platform.
Yeah, I just enjoyed like not being on display, or is like how I felt, you know, and it really, I mean, that was partially a skewed view on my part growing up, but you know, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I felt very like insecure stepping up to lead worship. I just did not know, felt like I didn't know how to be or whatever. And like the Lord called me into this production area, and I got the opportunity to really just serve, and I view it as like really taking things off of other leaders' plates who don't need them on their plates, you know, like when the pastor has to troubleshoot what's going on with his laptop, he's not focusing on the message, you know, like it's that kind of deal. And I really loved that, and even just kind of amplifying, like in a ministry perspective, like amplifying truth, right? Like when you take a song that somebody wrote and you're bringing it from A to Z, it's that message was there in that song to begin with, but when you polish it and you bring it, you know, all as far as you can take it, ultimately you're sharpening that tool, you know. And I love that. My heart was so much for that, and and a big part of me would just do that all day. And then God started having me write songs, and I was man. oh no, you know, like this means I got to like not keep them to myself, and you know, let me into a marriage with somebody else who, you know, the songs we write together, and recognizing like we said, like God uses all that. That was a big hurdle for me. It was getting to the place where like accepting the fullness of what I'm called to, you know, that was a big one. Yeah.
I think the biggest hurdle for me, I'm also a PK, pastor's kid, and ministry's not a walk in the park. Oh yeah. When you're the, you know, and so I grew up from when I was able to like perceive things that were happening and not happening, that kind of thing, pretty much from then until like maybe my late teens, probably right before we got married, I was like, I'm not doing ministry as a job. Like,
and she married me.
And that's a whole other thing. But you know, you watch your dad get beat up, and it's just that's kind of what we're called to do anyway. But like as a kid, you're just like, that doesn't look fun. That kind of sucks. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So I told God no for a very long time. You know, just be like, no, like I don't mind doing it on Sunday, but I don't want it to be like my thing. I want this to be my thing, and then I'll, you know, do the bare minimum the rest of the time. And then I got married to someone who worked at a church and was a worship leader and a songwriter, and I was like, oh, I'm really not getting out of this.
I was really deep into it really young. I never wanted to not play ever. Like I don't know that I've taken very many weeks off since I was a kid. As far as just like music on its own, like man, like God totally used that to grab me, because that was something that I loved as a kid. Like I had that in the place that God belonged. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But over time, like, you know, faithful to, one, use it, and two, teach me better, you know? And so I kind of recognized, like, okay, God took this thing I love a lot and not only like lets me do that in the kingdom, which is like such a cool gift, but
absolutely,
I never get tired of playing. I love it. It's like one of my favorite things. Music is such a cool gift from God.
Oh, great gift. And I have a like story with telling the Lord no, like I'm not doing this full time. Like my idea was success of I was going to be a choir director, and I was going to kind of do worship part time. And you know throughout seeing some things within ministry, I was like, I'm not going to really do this full time. So actually earlier on, I told Pastor T, like, hey, no, I don't think I'm going to do this full time. And so I continued to do, teaching and then doing the worship thing on the side, and then still wasn't fully happy with that. And then later on, the Lord brought the opportunity back again to go full time at Vizion. And, I knew then that's where the Lord wants me.
It starts to get glaringly obvious at certain points when the Lord's like, no, seriously, no, I'm telling you no. Like I was supposed to, I got accepted to Clemson right out of high school, and I was supposed to go for environmental engineering for like a science degree. And a week before I was supposed to move, we were dating.
I was praying for this to happen. I did not say anything. A week before I was supposed to move down there, all of my financial aid fell through. So they called me. They were like, "Yeah, you're gonna owe like $20,000 for the first year, something crazy." And I was just like, "What the heck?" And so I was like going to debt, or like just like at the time I was weighing that, or like just going to community college. But really, it was like the Lord going like, "I'm pulling your financial aid because this is not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
don't be stupid." And so like seeing that later, you're just like, "Oh, okay."
I see what you were doing there, Lord. I got you.
We were dating at the time, and I remember talking to her about it, and I would ask her how do you feel about this, or is this something you want to do? And she'd be like, I think so. And I remember like at that point in time, I had no place to like speak into what should happen, like because it wasn't. I mean, I was 17 at that time, so it was like it was not my. I just bit my tongue on all those conversations, and just honestly, I like prayed. Like I when I say prayed, I mean I literally didn't say anything to her about it.
Man.
I would just pray like, Lord, if it's possible, I would like for you to make a way for me to at least see her. But if it's not the right thing, like I can't interject here. It's not my place. So I'm gonna let you do that. Like, and sure enough, I was like sitting in the car one day, and they were talking, and I was not saying a word. And all of a sudden, we were driving to another school that was local, and I was like, oh yes, like just overjoyed, And that was one of those. I think getting married young and really like the heart to do it,
absolutely,
like and have it be a God-centered thing. That was had to be one of the first like big things where God like really put something on my heart, asked me to respond. I was like, I have no idea how this is going to happen, and then it was just all prayer and waiting. Wow. And man, it's been such a cool thing. So let me ask you this: as far as music, just. We ask everybody this question, and I think it's just kind of important because it's a question that sort of ties, we have worship leaders, we have people that just play in bands in Charlotte, different things like that. But I think one thing that's common is music means a lot to each of us. Tell us what music means to you.
Oh my gosh, music is a lifeline, a way of life. I think even earlier down to middle school band, that lady, Miss Sherry Wisnett, changed my life. I mean, she saw something within me that I didn't know I had musically, and she just inspired me so much musically. I can't really see myself doing anything else. Like, it's the way I express myself. It's the way I get all my emotions out. It's the way I articulate myself. God has given me that language as a lifeline. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. And it's a way to touch and inspire and minister to others. And some share the gospel by way of talking or preaching, but my way is music, and I get so much joy in doing it that way. And also building fellowship and community through music. It brings so many people together. And so, that's my language and what it means to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've talked about it before, but like, brief snapshot for me, like the whole, I'll recap it for people that don't know, like the part of the vision of the show of doing live in the studio, was really just every time we talk to people, our conversations are like this. Like if you and I were not in this room, not in this context, most of what we're saying would be said because that's kind of how musicians are. Like most of us will talk to each other about, like if we're in a band, like how it operates, if we're both working at a church, like how that operates.
Absolutely.
And, the different things that have been happening in music or in our church life that are really cool, that are music centered anyway. And so it all kind of funnels into this thing. And I mean, I think any musician will know, like if you meet somebody else who plays, you probably ask them like, oh, what do you play?
You talk about
how long you've been playing. Like, it's just so part of it. And it's been a way for us to connect with different people through the years. Sure. And it's honestly like a conversation, even growing up, where I recognize, like, I think really if I'm talking to somebody and they don't like music, like they kind of eventually they get annoyed with me, like because they don't want to talk about it.
There's nothing else to talk about.
like okay, we hear it, like you really like that part, like no one's interested in that right now except for another guitar player, and so it really just was kind of this like natural thing for us to do, but it kind of became a standpoint of trying to just foster community around that. I think a lot of times, especially like there's a lot of division in many areas in the world, right? But specifically, we'll just say like in secular and Christian music even, whereas a lot of those people really like have a lot in common and a lot to bond over and a lot of things that they both understand. And we kind of felt called, like with the podcast specifically, to just exist and be in that space and say like and welcome everyone into it, and honestly just an opportunity to share like songs that are being written, because there are great songs that are worship songs, and there are great songs that are not, in terms of just like on the technical like face value of a song. Obviously I think you and I believe there's something special in a worship song that's different, but doesn't mean I don't turn on the song and hear something on the radio and like it really still moves my heart because of whatever that person's going through.
Absolutely.
And, in my personal songwriting, I really believe, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, like I became, you know how you were talking about like it's your lifeline in songwriting or in music. For me, songwriting became something where I recognized like I have a really hard time like being vulnerable in emotion. Oh my goodness. Unless I'm songwriting. Yeah. And everything I've gone through in life, like it's in a book. Yeah. And it's not a journal. It's a songwriting notebook. Yeah. And kind of, I would actually, I became kind of, the more I walked into it, the more I recognized it's really prayer, like for me. And it kind of like anything I go through, I'm writing about, but I recognize like the Lord in a way has had a hand in every song I write, whether it's been secular or Christian. Not that I'll put all of them out, but in the sense of I'm processing and he's been there with me through each of those things, you know? And
that's so real.
So I kind of had this realization of it, like for me to tell you the Lord hasn't been involved in every one of my songs, even songs that are about like, I don't know, whatever we were going through at the time. Like just, I really feel like he's had a hand in each process. Whether or not I've been perfect in every moment of them is another story, but I definitely have seen him use everything. Absolutely. And it's been a really cool thing. Yeah. So for your songwriting process, I know you kind of talked to us about the writing retreat, but you personally, like, I know I asked you like when are the songs coming out? You said you guys are gonna do like a live worship, and that's how you're gonna record it, right? Yep. So can you kind of like just peel back the curtain on that a little bit on like how you guys are planning to like get a live record tracked and done and all that? You know yet?
Yeah, we're kind of going through the process, talking with the producer. But the purpose of the worship night was to, of course, record it, but also just put the songs out in the house, see how they feel, you know, what we need to change. And after Easter, we're planning to, we want to do a live recording the 4 special songs we have, but also doing some covers that the house really responds to, they really love. And we just get everybody in the room and we record hopefully 10 to 12 songs. and then release a single. Then shortly after that, release an EP or an album.
Okay.
At first, the vision was to do an EP, but now I'm kind of thinking more on the album thing.
Yeah, you get enough songs and you go, yeah, maybe there's more here.
And with the producer I was talking to, he was saying, yeah, you know, you're gonna have written these resources while you have this recording equipment. You might as well just record as much as you can. You don't have to use it all, but let's just.
Yep.
And so, although I've done some recording with my former church, to this part of the process, I'm still fairly new. So we're just walking it out, taking step by step, and
it's quite
figuring it out as we go.
It's quite an undertaking to do the live album. I think a lot of people don't understand like really what goes into it and what you might have to do to get it from A to Z. I mean, gosh, like if something doesn't come out, like you know, you're either cutting it or dubbing it, or you know, there's a lot of like things to understand of like how tight the band has to be. Like a lot of musicians, I think, underestimate that too. I mean, I think you know it, right? Like you know, like when you watch like I'll just say Elevation because it's the first one that comes to mind. Play their songs live, or Maverick play their songs live, like, and all those are recorded. You know, like they're as tight as a band can get, but like the undertaking of the preparation to get that tight is so much.
Yeah, it's the preparation of being tight vocally and musically, and afterwards going into overdub and look at yourself on the camera and all that stuff. So,
it is worth respect. I mean, it is a very huge thing. So I'm excited to see how that goes for you guys, and like hear the result of that. Because I mean, even just hearing you guys all play today, I mean, you're talking about 5 and 6 hour rehearsals, like that makes sense. You know, a lot of people wouldn't guess 5 and 6 hour rehearsals for, you know, a worship night.
And even it was crazy. We all just pushed ourselves. I think on the week of the worship night, we had gotten stems for 2 of the original songs in, so we had like a day or a few hours for some, depending on everybody's schedule, to learn those for the rehearsal. It was a fast turn time, and I think some of the guys who we've had to play at the worship night, like Carlos I mentioned, he had recorded Untitled's album all day the day before, and some other guys had been doing some other things, so the window of learning the music was very tight. But through those times of us pushing ourselves, we all develop and grow in musicianship as well. So
I've recognized, like, just in recording and doing it for so many years, that there's a difference even in, and this is an interesting thing live, but there's a difference in being like a really tight studio musician and being like like playing on stage and being tight in that environment, just because it's totally different kinds of, like when you're tracking, like, I mean, I recognize the more I tracked at home, I was like, man, I'm like a tighter player in the studio than I am live sometimes. If I've been doing that for like a month or two, and we've been working on an album or something, and then I go to play like in a room with other people, I'm like, okay, that's a different skill set.
It's a different beast. And I don't consider myself a session musician. I have a lot of friends who are indeed session musicians. They do live recordings. And so this season, it's been pushing me. Even, you know, TK with being on the show. We hired him to be an MD, but honestly, you know, he has so many other giftings.
Oh, he's great.
He leads worship.
Hi, TK.
Hey, TK. He has a pastoral anointing on him as well. So honestly, his highest and best is really not behind the keyboard. And so, but it's been beautiful because we're able to switch up. And if I'm leading worship, he's playing. If I'm playing, he's leading worship. But
he's a great dude.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a great dude.
And so with the songs that we've been writing, we've decided to send them off to a good friend of mine, Josh Isaac, and Reggie Rett, who's from Travis Green's church. And I said, hey, these are where we've gotten the songs. We want you to do some instrumental stems, program everything, and I'll have our guys in-house learn it. And that was super dope.
Okay.
Super dope.
Very cool. Very cool.
That goes back to the process.
That's a very interesting process. And then so you guys will track them live and then get them mixed and stuff. That's awesome.
I think an important growth point too, that I feel like every worship team hits this at a certain point, is finding that really weird, awkward balance between like excellence and like being on point with like what you're singing and playing and doing all of that, but then like letting it all go. You know what I mean?
There's like a balance there.
Like you're live recording and it needs to come through clean, and it, you know, it's going to be edited, and that's important, but also like it's worship music, you know what I mean? So you can't just be straight performance like you would for a secular show. You have to like get yourself into that right. I struggle with that a lot.
And I've had to still finding that balance. And I think some people have mentioned to me, you know, TJ, you're a perfectionist. You're doing this for the Lord. And I'm like, you know, I get it, but excellence can meet the Holy Spirit as well. We want it to be very excellent and tight as a recording, and we don't want it to be when things aren't excellent it's a distraction.
I think so. The way I always put it, like, so God can work in a time frame. God can work in a structure. Yep. God can work in 2 seconds more than you could work in 20 years, right? Like, that's absolutely the kind of thing. And so there's sort of this, like, it's really more about obedience
there you go.
than it is about what it is. Like, you know, at the same time, like if in a service, right? Like if you're discerning whether to push it further, at the same time discerning, like maybe we need to pull back. Like, you know, it's both of those things. I always think, like, when it comes to like excellence and then letting go of it, I really have enjoyed the seasons where, like, the band is tight enough that really it's more just about being with our friends and worshiping. Like, and I think that it's hard to see it sometimes, but that's on the other side of that. Like, on the other side of the band being so unbelievably tight is freedom of
absolutely.
Like, it's not even in your head anymore. And I mean, it is on some level, but it becomes so normal to you
because you're so prepared. Because you're so tight, you can now let go because you've built that muscle memory. And so,
granted, I very much believe, like, some people are not wired that way. Like, you know, people come in with different gifts and abilities and are geared towards different things. And, you know, I think that at that point, like, the heart, at least for us in leadership through the years, has been, like, to be able to, see everybody who is, like, different abilities, like, work together, you know. And sometimes that's a little bit of compromise, and you have the people who, like, you know, like the singer who doesn't want the click in their ears, but they just let all the other band have it in their ears, and they're following along with that. You know, stuff like that happens. So what do you guys hope happens, like, or what do you hope happens in the next, like, 3 to 5 years in ministry?
Wow, 3 to 5 years.
That'd be twice the time you've been in Vizion now, right? Like, that'd be like 6 years in.
I'm hoping ultimately that our entire team walks out their calling of what the Lord is calling them to do within the ministry. And I think we're in a place now where the Lord is doing some healing. He's doing some restoring of certain church hurt, things that some of our team has gone through pre-Vizion. And so, but I think he's also pushing us to go deeper in him. And I think he's preparing us in a way to be, to be the best we are in him, because he's sending a lot to the church. The church is growing, so we just want to be positioned and ready in the call to be able to steward what he's given us. The goals that I have within the next 3 to 5 years, we're getting ready to open another campus. And so, you know, making sure those ducks are in line, but also we plan to continue to build a culture of songwriting. We want to, you know, put the records out, hopefully eventually do a choir album. Katrina Houston is our next gen worship leader. She has a vision of eventually doing some music with next gen and youth.
Okay. Awesome.
And also doing more collaborating with our churches in the area. I don't think we do enough of that. So figuring out how we can start collaborating musically with the people around us.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Well, it's kind of funny. I know we're flipped it around. We're gonna kind of close down here. But we did the song first today, so we've already heard the song in this room. But will you tell us about it for people that don't know the song you guys are performing today? Technically, that you already have. However you want to go with that.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful song that our team wrote, specifically TK Morrison, Thomas Kurtz, and Kenzie Malls. And when they were doing a song share that night, and they started singing, I was like, wow, this song is really special. And it basically just talks about, like, you know, no matter what you're going through, any trial, any circumstance, even when you don't feel like, sometimes you have to lay your hand on yourself and command your soul to praise. And you even think about the story with Job, how he lost everything he had, but he still didn't lose his faith in God. You know, he kept his integrity toward the Lord. And sometimes we have to do that when we give the Lord worship and we praise God. Our problems become small and God becomes more magnified. And so that song is basically just a good reminder to, like, hey, you know, even in the bridge says, even in sorrow, I'll bless you. Even in wandering, God, you have control. I'll command my soul to praise. And so whatever you're going through, even if you don't feel like it, no matter what it is, give the Lord praise despite your circumstance. And also when we did it for the worship night, just hearing that, from so many people in the house, they've said, this is my testimony. Specifically, one of our prayer team leaders said like, hey, I was paralyzed, or I got in a bad accident and I was down for like 7 years. And when everybody started praying for me, I had to lay my hands on myself, and I had to command my soul to give the Lord praise. I didn't stay down and out, and I had to keep moving. And so that was just a special moment for me. And also the song is just a special song for our church. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, TJ, thank you so much for being on the show, man. You did a great job. The song is awesome. I know that we've already heard it, but it's phenomenal. It's a great time having you guys all in here. And
thank you.
Is there any way we can like shout out like whatever social media you guys are using for Vizion, or whatever, or yours, or however you want right now?
Yeah, we don't have a Vizion Worship page just yet, but if you like to
it'll probably be there soon.
It'll be there soon.
Just yet implies.
Yeah, Vizion Church at Vizion Church on all social platforms, Instagram, Facebook. My Instagram is at tj.gram_. But yeah, come see us on Sunday morning. You have 5 opportunities.
Yeah, there's plenty. TJ, thank you again so much for being here with us. And without any further ado, here is Command My Soul by Vizion Worship.
Oh, soul, are you weary and troubled? Have you tried to quench your thirst to no avail? Did you forget about the water in the desert? Oh, soul, I command you, praise the Lord. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. Yeah, it's yours anyway. Oh, soul, are you searching for answers? Have you wandered in circles way too long? Don't you remember the whisper in the wilderness? Oh, soul, I command you, praise the Lord. Oh, soul, I command you, praise the Lord. Oh, head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. I will bless the Lord at all times. I will bless His name. Even in mourning, I'll praise you. Even in wandering, God, you have control. Even in sorrow, I'll bless you. Even in mourning, I'll praise you. Even in wandering, God, you have control. Even in sorrow, I'll bless you. I command my soul. Even in mourning, I'll praise you. Even in wandering, God, you have control. Even in sorrow, I'll bless you. I command my soul. Even in mourning, I'll praise you. Even in wandering, God, you have control. Even in sorrow, I'll bless you. I command my soul to praise. I command my soul to praise. I command my soul to praise. Command my soul. I command my soul to praise. Command my soul to praise. I command my soul to praise. Command my soul. Oh, head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised, I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. Oh, my soul to praise. Command my soul to praise. I command my soul to praise. Command my soul to praise. I command my soul. I command my soul to praise. Oh, head high, hands raised. I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway. It's yours anyway. Head high, hands raised. I command my soul to praise. It's yours anyway.